Welcome, fans, to a special edition of the Mavpuckcast. I'm Bridget Whitey-Brooks, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Commissioner Heather Weems, who is going into her third season leading the National Collegiate Hockey Conference. Welcome, Commissioner Weems.
Thanks so much, Bridget. I'm excited to be here and with a new audience.
Exactly. And speaking of exciting, these are exciting times in the NCHC. We're going to be celebrating a lot of firsts and a lot of lasts this upcoming season. The first time, of course, welcoming a new conference member in the history of the NCHC with ASU coming in, the ninth team. And then some sad lasts. The last time the Frozen Face-Off is going to be at the Xcel Energy Center as the conference transitions to campus sites in the future. So I want to start out by talking with you about the future. Yes. My favorite chancellor, Joanne Lee, said college athletics is at a pivotal moment when she became chair of the NCHC board of directors a year ago. And when he was hired 2 years ago, Adrian Dowell said that we have no way of imagining 15 years ago what we would be dealing with the state of athletics today. We've got the NIL, the transfer portal, litigation, conference realignment, all of these other impacts. And then, of course, you've been quoted as saying that a large part of our conversation in the last 18 to 24 months is how do we position the NCHC in an NCAA landscape that we're not sure where it's landing. So how do you draw on your 25 years of athletic administration and leadership experience to lead the NCHC into this uncertain future?
Yeah, I think that it's testing all of us in new ways. And again, generally, I will say that the people that I've worked with in college athletics are fantastic people and very centered on the student athlete experience. We know, and many of us from our own experiences as student athletes, that this is a critical time for them and their growth and development, obviously on the ice or other sports, obviously, as well, but really as people and as future contributors to society. In the same way, I would say that we are also significant parts of our university and campus and local communities. And so I think as we position, there are so many unknowns. And to be honest, one of my ADs last week, I think, said, I wish that they would stop doing the ticker in the morning and the ticker in the evening because there's too much that happens in between. We should just go to one ticker report. But I think what I would say is we need to remember, and particularly the NCHC and our member institutions and who we are, we need to remember that at the forefront of our decisions is always centered around the student athletes and then our community and fan engagement and responsibility to our local areas. And so with that said, it is changing fast. I mean, last week on Media Day, we woke up, I think we all woke up to the announcement that the pack is back and it's a 6-pack now. Maybe tomorrow it'll be an 8-pack or a 10-pack. And so we're keeping that in mind. I think the biggest thing, and I guess I've sensed this amongst our athletics directors as well, is that particularly with all the litigation and the new conjecture about where we're going to land, maybe we've settled a little bit into we need to be ready with urgency, but not panic, because it's just there's too much change going on. And we've got to make sure that we land in a place that's sustainable and isn't a knee-jerk reaction. So I know that doesn't give a ton of answers, but if I go back to we want to be a conference that serves our student athletes because we're universities that serve our students. And secondly, we know the importance in our markets, and particularly for a number of our campuses, hockey specifically, it's a flagship for many of our universities. And it is a place where we unite people, we unite alumni, we unite our business communities. We unite passionate fans, and we want to be able to be responsive to them, but also understanding we are not the Power Five. We really want to continue to serve our niche of hockey and continue to grow that base.
I love your idea of urgency, but not panic, because things are moving so quickly. It would be easy to take kind of a knee-jerk reaction and say, we need to do this, but we don't have all the information yet.
Right.
So, and I love that you're talking about the student athlete experience, because I know that you were on the NCHC's Student Athlete Wellbeing Task Force while you were athletic director at St. Cloud, and obviously a student athlete yourself at the University of Iowa. So I know your focus on student athletes is important to you. And I listened to your TED Talk about Title IX. And one of the things that you said about student athletes playing their final games on collegiate campuses really struck me, because we don't think about that a lot of times. A lot of these young men and young women, this is going to be the height of their career as a student athlete, but they obviously go out in the world. So how do you support, especially in the NCHC, these young men to help them successfully make that next move after college, whether that's athletics or something else?
Um, Given my background and mostly on campuses and as an athletics director, I'll go back a little bit. I started my career at the University of Denver, and I developed the Student Athlete Support Services program as they transitioned from Division II to Division I. So it really was focused on the student experience. That said, a couple years into my career, what I recognized is that it is the coaches that make the difference. So just like in a classroom situation, the faculty ultimately are the representatives of your institution and the experience for our students, along with advisors and staff. But really, it's the coaches who our student athletes have contact with every day. And so really supporting and empowering them and being able to do the work that they do. And, like I would say across the board with our NCHC coaches, and there isn't just one style. Like I've seen multiple coaches in many sports, and they all have a little bit different style. But you can throw all the money in the world at athletics, and if you don't have a good leader who creates culture and creates buy-in and continuously serves as a servant leader in a lot of ways, the money doesn't fix the problems. My old example always used to be the University of Texas has, I think, 16 sport programs, which is the minimum in FBS, and one of the largest budgets at 260 or $80 million. I mean, an incredible budget. If it were all about money, without question, you'd win every championship. And certainly, they're coming around and they're winning more, but it hasn't always been the case. And so I look at our teams and, our athletics directors, first of all, understand the importance of hockey on their campuses, and they also understand the importance of providing a culture and a coach who buys into not just athletics achievement, but really their fit on their campus. And so how do we support that? Certainly it's by supporting our coaches and giving them, as many resources as possible, and also prioritizing those resources. So that's the day-to-day. Beyond that, I think what we know about our student athletes, the NCHC is a destination league because of the quality of our members. Students who are great players want to play with the best. And they know every series, sometimes ad nauseum. They know every series. They're going to have to put out their best performance to win at the end. And so I think that certainly serves our students by giving them the best place to develop and play. And then finally, with our tournament, it's providing them a place. I mean, in a lot of ways, the tournament is a practice for the NCAA tournament. So how do we make sure that we provide for them a first-class event where, we've got systems in place, and, they can get into the practice plan and the arrival, and they're essentially practicing what it means to be on a big stage. And so, at the culminating end of their season, how do we ensure that they walk away from the tournament ready, knock on wood, for what are the next games in the NCAA tournament?
Well, certainly that came to bear last season with Denver getting their practice in the frozen faceoff and then turning right around and going back to the X to win the national championship. So that was the best possible outcome for those student athletes for sure.
Yes, it was.
So congratulations on that. Great job preparing them.
Yep.
So you talked about resources in the sport, and obviously it would be wonderful to have unlimited resources. And of course, one of the things that helps provide resources is growth in the sport. And I noticed last year, I think College Hockey Inc. said that men's hockey attendance was up 8% last season. And we're seeing a lot of growth in the sport, which obviously helps build revenues and engagement and all the things we talked about. But going back to 2011, some of the research I found shows that still about 2/3 of the fans for college hockey are men and about 1/3 women. So how do you grow this audience overall, and specifically among women, especially when women make a lot of the decisions about how household finances are spent in order to continue to grow and provide those resources?
We know that discretionary time and resources are a huge deal. And so, amongst all of our fans, helping to be a place where they can see themselves and be comfortable. I think there's a couple of things. And actually, I think Omaha is a great example. I think Mike West and his team and the work that they've done to really grow I think Omaha is one of the leading schools in terms of growth in fan base and attendance. And to be honest, I think a lot of it has to be grassroots. I think there's a couple things. One, I do think the better technology on television and web streaming makes it easier. Hockey was a hard sport to watch on TV, during analog television days before HD. You couldn't always see the puck. It's already a really fast game. And so if you're the casual fan, you just get my head's going back and forth, but I'm not really sure what I'm looking at. I think that, camera angles have gotten better and just filming in general. And so, for some people, that's an introduction. But really, I guess, and particularly, one of the things that I've always loved about college athletics is that our players and our coaches are touchable. They arrive oftentimes through the same doors as a lot of our fans. We don't have underground tunnels where they go and, never actually come into contact with people. They walk across campus with students who are, there to get an education. They do tons of community service, and whether that be working at, boys and girls clubs or being engaged in, educational initiatives or, different things within your community, they also do a ton of stuff on campus. So whether it's, early, I know right now we're getting into a lot of the kickoff breakfast opportunities for fans, or they work with youth hockey teams. I really think that that's the grassroots part of it. And to be honest, particularly for women, I guess I found that when women like the stories, they like knowing who it is they're supporting. They like knowing that those kids are a part of this larger community and this larger life. And so when you have youth hockey teams who get to interface with our players, and you invite moms and dads to come and do the tour. When I was at St. Cloud State, I know Coach Larson did a fantastic job. Like, he made arrangements with the local teams, particularly St. Cloud Sartell, where I believe it was all the Squirt teams got a Monday night where they got to come in and they got to do a tour of the locker room and the strength and conditioning area. And parents were invited. And when they see that it's real, when they see that these players interact and are supportive, and they begin to see themselves in the players. They think, I can do this. And it's not just about hockey. It can be, I can do this. I can go to college. I can do this. I can be a good high school player. It doesn't have to be the epitome of their career. But I think that in so many cases, and particularly in our campuses that happen to be in kind of college towns, they're really looking for that one-on-one. And that the more that we showcase and tell the stories of our players and make them identifiable, the better off we are in terms of fan attendance and just support and support, whether our teams are doing great or whether they're having a down year. You want that consistency where people just buy into the culture of your program and what it does for your campus and community.
I've seen firsthand exactly what you're talking about at St. Cloud, having gone up there for a number of series when they do the skate with the team after the game,
Yep.
seeing the little kids, get on the ice and they dream of, being able to play there too. And like you said, I like how you were talking about with the women engaging with the players as a bigger story because I do see that among, female fans.
Absolutely.
And then you talked about, the streaming aspect of it. I've been pretty vocal in the past about you guys have an incredible partnership with CBS Sports. And one of the questions that I always have is why can't we have an and strategy for CBS Sports and the NCHC TV instead of an or strategy? And by that, I mean, when negotiating that contract, I don't know when it comes up for renegotiating, but why can't we have those beautifully produced games also shown on the NCHC broadcast and also available to subscribers instead of that, or strategy?
I think in an ideal world, it's not, it is an and strategy. But also when you're working with partners, it's also about their market share and they have a business element to it as well. And I think, we know that hockey is a niche sport. And so already, we don't get the numbers that football and basketball oftentimes get for CBS. And so in those markets, when they get the games, for them, there is a business model that we also have to support. And so to date, we've really enjoyed the partnership with them. We enjoy the ability to have some national exposure. And then and I understand that our NCHC subscribing fans, TV subscribing fans are frustrated by that the CBS contract is up after this year. So we will engage in conversation with them. But the world of streaming and television is changing. So, we'll certainly see in the next few months what we might come up with or if we'll change some directions.
Well, just think of me and the word "and" while you're working on that, and tell them how much how great it's been for Midco, having their beautifully produced
Yep.
games distributed on NCHC TV. There's definitely a model there for great content shown in a wider audience. So speaking of exposure, I didn't see very many in-market TV stations at NCHC Media Day. I don't think any of the Omaha stations went up there, for example. So speaking exactly of that, how do you reach college hockey fans when traditional media isn't covering it like they do, football and basketball, or when you're fighting for space and airtime with football in the fall and then with basketball in the spring, and then just, news in general?
I think that really was the intention behind NCHC TV, is that we know that we are all fighting for market share. And sometimes we get the question because some people certainly would like to be on ESPN. It would be part of their general ESPN package. What we see as a benefit of NCHC TV is that we have control of it. It is a branding source for us and a visibility source that if we were on ESPN, we wouldn't have the same ability to create content and have one platform. If you want to know anything about NCHC and what's going on, and if you want the additional opportunities to access all of the, it's whether it's the fan of the week sorts of information or the game show things and the additional content that Sam Keeney in our office does such a great job of producing, it's all at one site, and that's where we drive everybody. And that negotiation came, under previous Commissioner Fenton, but it was our opportunity to really brand ourselves and to provide kind of an A to Z content platform for everything that we do, rather than saying, okay, for some content, for games, you're going to go to ESPN. For some of the more social content, go to whatever social site you see. The website's going to carry this. This is one combined place where all things NCHC are in that spot. And to be honest, it's a challenge when you're in a niche market, when there's so many things going on. I mean, I think that's the comment that anybody in sports would say. And, I'm going to say at the same time, like, I am cheering all the way for the growth of women's sports. Volleyball, we've seen a ton of growth in college volleyball, in softball, and in women's basketball. Go Caitlin Clark as an Iowa grad. But that becomes a more diversified market where, again, you're fighting for every share. And so I think that that's something we continually are cognizant about. It's where we have to provide our best content, continue to tell the stories of our players and really reach out to our communities and get them in the building. I mean, I think that again, I use Omaha as an example. The work that they've done to really get people in the building. The belief is that once you can get them hooked, they come back. So how do you position yourselves, for those early season wins to get new faces? Because you know that a percentage of them are going to say, wait a second, I'd never been to a hockey game or I've never seen anything like this. I need more. And so I'll be the first, Bridget, to say it's a crowded market. And it's a crowded market in a place where, hockey has a lot of regional allure. I mean, live and work in the state of hockey, so to speak. And, in our community from the high school level, I mean, the Excel Energy Center sells out for high school tournaments every single year. It's the biggest high schoh tournament that exists in this state, but that's not how we are everywhere. So again, a lot of it is the grassroots. A lot of it is providing a front to back platform where hopefully we can tell the stories and get people revisiting just to get the scoop and get the information.
Well, John and I are huge supporters of NCHC TV. We've subscribed since day one, and we love what you've done. And of course, I've heard you speak in other avenues about improving the quality of the broadcast and enhancing those broadcasts. So we really appreciate the resources and support you put into there. We're obviously not at home watching the NCHC TV broadcasts when the games are in Omaha. We're going to be at Baxter, but sometimes we go back and watch the clips and get the insights that they're sharing on the broadcast. So thank you for all your work with NCHC TV.
And I do think, I mean, the other thing that I will say that I think is neat about hockey is that I think our fans tend to follow all of the teams in the conference. So when you can watch NCHC TV and you can put up the fourplex so that you can see, the 4 different games going on any given weekend, if they're, the home games at least, I think that that's helpful. And again, I think it shows particularly when you get to the Frozen Four. When you walk into a Frozen Four, it doesn't matter the 4 teams that are playing. You will see almost every one of the 64 teams across the country, as well as some professional teams, some club teams, some random high school teams represented in the jerseys. And that's because, again, I think a little bit as a niche sport, they're rooting for their team, but they're also rooting for the sport, and they just want to see good play.
Oh, for sure. John and I have been to obviously a couple, Frozen Fours, and you wear your team's jersey, right, even if your team isn't there. And it's just neat to connect with those fans and in other markets and do that. But you're correct. It's such a niche sport. You are competing for time and resources, and that makes it difficult. And yeah, a lot of times, John, I'll come home from Baxter and turn on NCHC TV, and we can still catch the third period from Denver, Colorado College, and so that's
and soon to be Arizona State,
and soon to be Arizona State. And thank you, by the way. I wanted to share. I don't know who's responsible for it. John said that on last week's podcast. We don't know who's responsible for making us Arizona State's travel partner, but we couldn't be more appreciative. Because as somebody who travels a lot for college hockey, there's nothing better than getting to wear, shorts and a t-shirt when you're following your team.
There's a lot of truth to that. It's a little bit of the outlier matchup because we had, just kind of that one left. But as we were thinking about it, we're like, the flight from Omaha to direct and, not so hard. And I don't think anyone necessarily would have been upset to have that as the travel partner.
I gotta tell you, I don't know who won the fist fight, but the North Dakota fans, I'm sure, would have loved that, that vacation. But we'll take it. We're going to be on the nonstop down to Phoenix in November, so we're very excited about that. All right, one last question. So I've been curious. Obviously, a lot has changed in the last 2 years for you, but can you give us an idea of what is a day in the life like for the NCHC commissioner?
Well, I work remotely from St. Cloud, Minnesota. So, and I will be honest in saying that it's productive and I've learned how to operate. I do miss the contact. So I can't wait every year for the season to start because then I get to start traveling and I get to see people more than what I do. In the summer, my kids are around. So, it's not like my house is empty, but I get really excited for the season simply because I get to get out. And one of my favorite things to do is get onto campuses. I'm kind of a higher ed nerd like that. Like I just like to see the development and the growth that campuses experience from year to year, not just in their athletics departments, but really across the campus. So a day in the life, a lot of it, Zoom meetings and or Teams meetings, really catching up. We do monthly meetings with a number of our constituents, so head coaches, with our athletics council group, which is ADs and some of the deputy ADs. I've got quarterly meetings going on with the faculty athletic reps. We have monthly meetings, and then I'll just say plus other things that come up with the commissioners across the country. So a lot of times I would say mornings are a lot of just catching up with emails and things that are going on. And one of the things I've always loved about athletics is you're not just in one lane, like in one day I can be working on hotel reservations for officials, to trying to figure out what the schedule might look like in 2 years and how do we put that together, to having a conversation with a coach or an AD about what's going on in the larger landscape. So the morning tends to be more filled with meetings, whatever many of them could be. And then the afternoon more project based. So, like right now and in the last month or so, it's a lot of, just going over policies, making sure we're up to date. All of our policy manuals are caught up. Every year the officiating, Mike Schmidt does a great job with our officiating. And so we just got done with camp. And so there's a lot of planning that goes on with that. I do a lot of the budgeting and just approvals. Like in a lot of ways, I think as a commissioner of a single sport league, we have many fewer staff members. And so probably our hands touch a little bit more breadth of sorts of things. So for instance, when I first moved in the position, people asked me what was the biggest difference between being an athletics director and a commissioner. And I said, well, in a single sport conference, mostly I run a small business. So on a campus, if I had a budget question, I had a budget office. If I had an HR question, I have an HR office. If I have an IT problem, there's IT available. Well, all of those really happen within our own confines. And then we've got partners, we have an accountant who works with us who's external. But I do a lot of the preliminary sorts of things, of budgeting and charting accounts and those sorts of things. And so there's a lot of variety. But the key is, just to try and keep our membership just in tune with what's going on to make sure that as we get close to puck drop, everything's ready to go and that we provide as much consistency across the board. I mean, every institution, there's a lot of autonomy. Institutions do their own thing and they have their own marketing and their own communications and, their own game, promotions and sponsorships and those sorts of things. But ensuring that as the game is played, there is consistency. And when we drop the puck, that our student athletes know, what they can expect and that we're delivering the best product to our fans that we possibly can.
I love that. Again, I don't love all the meetings that I feel for you there, but John and I own our own small business. And so I understand that idea of wearing all the hats and working with external partners, to keep them up to date on what you're doing and what you need from them. So completely understand that. But I also am excited for the beginning of the season because it means travel too. So we hope to see you in Omaha, maybe a couple of times, at least once.
I'll be in Vegas in a couple of weeks. So
okay, outstanding. Well, we will hook up with you in Vegas. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Mavpuckcast and share these insights with our fans. We really appreciate the opportunity to learn more about your role and how the NCHC is supporting our student athletes, since that's so important. And we'll see you in Vegas in less than a month.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Bridget.
Thank you.
Yep. Take care.